Hello?
Hello.
Oh my God, it's a miracle. Are you there?
Yes. Yes, I'm here. Go
We're
ahead.
talking about drones, right?
Yes, you wrote a piece for National Geographic on them.
Where are you?
I'm in Brooklyn.
Oh, we're practically neighbors.
I think the last time we spoke, I was in Arkansas. No, it was in Maryland. I was in Maryland.
Yeah, that's my recollection that you weren't around here.
Well, compared to the other person on the call, we were basically sitting in each other's living rooms because Gwen Dyer was on that call.
Really?
Yep, he
You
was in
know,
London.
I forget. I once did some kind of chat with him. I forget if that was with you or some other show.
Yeah, you and he and I, we had a three-way conversation about you had written, I think, a blog piece thinking that basically the end of war had come. And
Yeah.
he had just done a book and a radio series called Climate Wars, talking about how climate change is going to be the driver of future conflicts.
Yeah, I'm really hammering on some of my green lefty friends for that pessimistic attitude.
So you're hammering on them for having a pessimistic attitude?
Yeah, I'm really upset that there are some green activists, Bill McKibben is one of the worst, who say that we're going to have all these shortages of water and food because of global warming, and that will lead inevitably to warfare. And that just is not empirically valid. If you look at the history of warfare and violent conflict, there's a very tenuous relationship between war and resource scarcity. And I'm worried that all these predictions that global warming is going to lead to warfare will be self-fulfilling.
How would you know after the fact if there wouldn't have been a war without the prophecy?
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Um, I think we just need to recognize that the choice is in our hands. And it's a matter of rhetoric. If you are somebody who has a very broad audience like Bill McKibben, I think you have to ask yourself, how is your rhetoric going to affect people? Is the best way to get them to change their behavior and to lobby for political change to scare the shit out of them and make them think that we're headed for war unless we do something? I worry that scare tactic will lead people to support hawkish policies so that the United States remains strong militarily and capable of winning resource battles in the future, rather than getting people to invest more in alternative energy, trying to wean ourselves away from fossil fuels and so forth.
You know,
Uh,
it's funny that you mentioned Bill McKibben in that light as a sort of a scaremonger because I talk to a lot of people about energy policy and about the need to get off of fossil fuels. And almost universally, they consider Bill McKibben to be spreading a really unrealistic sort of Pollyanna gloss on what's possible. Even the name of his organization, 350.org, there is no hope of getting atmospheric carbon down to 350 parts per million in this century. And in fact, we're going the other way still.
Yeah, he's a funny mixture of optimism and pessimism. I mean, he wants people to think that we can make these very rapid changes in how we use energy, but to motivate people to do that, he says that if we don't do these things, the shit is going to hit the fan, the world is going to end, horrible things are going to happen, we're going to go back to some kind of Stone Age existence. And I really admire the guy. He's very intelligent. I think his heart is in the right place. As I said, it's a matter of these rhetorical choices that we make, and especially when it comes to resource scarcity and warfare, it's not just a matter of rhetoric. It's also a matter of looking at the data, looking at history, and seeing that often it's really prosperous, powerful, wealthy nations that wage war. I mean, World War I was not a war about resource scarcity. It was the richest nations on earth fighting over God knows what. The United States is the wealthiest nation on earth now, and it's engaged in these crazy militaristic policies that actually are economically destructive. So anyway, I hate the squabbling among people who are all basically on the same side, but it's something that it really does worry me, I gotta say.
Well, there's a huge amount that we could dig into there, but I've actually called to talk about something else. It's related,
Right.
tangentially related. It is the topic of drones,
Hmm.
or as the military likes to call them, unmanned aerial vehicles. I think drones is a media word. And
Right.
you've written an article for National Geographic about drones. So,
Hmm.
if you would just say something about the process of writing that and what you learned in talking to various people about this topic.
Well, National Geographic asked me to do this article. God, I guess it was about 15 months ago. It was the fall of 2011. I have a friend who works there, and he knew I was interested in national security and war and military issues. So he asked if I wanted to do something on drones, and I jumped at the chance. I've written about drones on my Scientific American blog. I really wanted to dig into the topic, and we decided that we would look not primarily at the way that drones are being used by the U.S. military in Pakistan and Afghanistan and places like that, but on the prospects for drones coming into the United States, uh, and especially being used by law enforcement agencies here. And that is something that is definitely going to happen. The question is, on what scale is it going to happen, and in what way will the drones be used? And to me, it's very disturbing because it looks like drones almost certainly will be used for very wide-scale surveillance by police agencies and other law enforcement agencies. The Obama administration, not surprisingly, is very enthusiastic about this trend. It's trying to ease aviation regulations to make it easier for law enforcement agencies to fly drones around cities and other population centers. Um, the Obama administration is also providing grants for law enforcement agencies to buy drones. And now we're getting down to exactly what kind of surveillance will drones carry out, and is it possible that domestic drones will be armed in the future? And how common are they going to be, and what are they going to look like? Are we going to have big ones that are floating very high up so we don't even see them, or are we going to be surrounded by lots of these little tiny drones that are disguised as bugs and birds so we don't even know they're there? So there's a lot of stuff going on, and I try to cover all this in my article.
My guess is that we'll have both. That the ones way up high.
Sorry, I lost audio with you.
I had muted my mic. It's nothing at your end.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah. My guess is that we'll get some of both because the drones or the unmanned vehicles that would be way up high would need the most sophisticated optics to really keep an eye on the ground, and that will be the province of governments and big corporations. But under 400 feet, which is below basically the jurisdiction of the FAA, as I understand it, I think that's where you'll see hobbyists and you'll see non-governmental players and probably police as well with smaller, cheaper drones, things that
Right.
wouldn't cost the user so much if they were damaged or lost, but which
Yes.
don't have to abide by the jurisdiction of the FAA.
Well, right now the FAA still, the laws are a little bit odd because hobbyists aren't really covered by FAA restrictions. On the other hand, hobbyists pretty much have to have drones within their line of sight. You've got these new drones now, though, that have very sophisticated computer systems. So you can have basically some kind of Google map system on your iPad, let's say, and you can just click your cursor on a spot on that map, and your drone will has a little computer brain and will automatically go to that spot, and then it can circle and engage in surveillance at any altitude that you like. I mean, the software really is amazing, and and it's my understanding that right now, even the small drones who can carry that out are still covered by FAA regulations. Now we're talking though about easing those regulations on drones below a certain weight size and so forth. But some of these tiny drones can still be armed, let's say. I mean, you've already got a military drone called the Switchblade, which is about, I don't know, it's about the size of a loaf of French bread. It can fit in a backpack, and it also can be operated by a handheld device, and it's very precise. So, you know, a soldier can, if he knows where a bad guy is over a hill, he can get his map out on his computer and press the cursor, and this little drone will go over the hill and go down and then detonate a grenade on the bad guy. And this is just tiny. So the possibility for having these little, really tiny drones that are deadly, I mean, it's already happening right now. And I think you're going to get more versions of this in the future.
One thing that you mentioned, which is it's an ongoing process with many fronts that I've been following for a while, is the militarization of police forces. Arms manufacturers are thrilled that police forces around the country now have armored vehicles, and that it's not just the SWAT team that needs body armor and automatic weapons, and that you can have gunboats to patrol canals and things like that. The civilian police forces are starting to seem a lot more military, and it doesn't surprise me in the least that the Obama administration would be thrilled to see them adopting the use of drones just like the military.
Yeah, I have seen some news reports recently, and I wish I had that at my fingertips so I could tell you exactly where these are. But there are some cities where police departments have petitioned, have said that they want to start incorporating drones into police work, and you've got people coming to town meetings and saying and lobbying the mayor and other town officials saying they don't want this. So I think awareness is being raised of this trend, but people need to get out there and tell their political leaders what they think, or this will happen. Especially because drones, unlike, let's say, armored vehicles and so forth, are so cheap. The ACLU is all over it. The ACLU is worried that this will be this huge extra infringement on people's privacies. You can have drones also used to intercept cell phone conversations. For example, it's possible, I talked to several people doing my article who said that you now have some scanning technologies that can detect people inside buildings. So you can monitor the motion of people inside buildings, which is really creepy. I also, if your audience checks out this blog I write for Scientific American, I wrote a piece called "Why You Should Be Afraid of Drones, Very Afraid," and I linked to this video produced by the Air Force that shows these little tiny drones about the size of cell phones that look like overgrown bugs flying around through the city and tracking bad guys, and then in one case shooting a bad guy in the back of the head. And the Air Force, what's bizarre is that it's a really creepy video, and yet the Air Force is using it to promote the use of drones. So I hope people check this out and realize what the government wants to do with these things.
I will post a link to that in the video notes here. Have you read or know the contents of David Brin's nonfiction book, The Transparent Society?
People have told me um, about this book, but no, I haven't read it.
Well, it's from the 90s, and it seems pretty prescient in terms or in light of current developments. But his contention is that, and he wasn't talking about drones at the time, he was just talking about cameras like closed circuit TV. But his contention is that the technology that allows for this type of surveillance is getting cheaper and cheaper and more reliable and more flexible, and that a surveillance society is coming. And there's really nothing we can do to change that fact. But if people proceed from a sort of simplistic notion of privacy and they insist that their representatives pass legislation which guarantee actually be creating harm, at least they'll be working counter to their own interests, because we don't have a future in which there is privacy, in which the powerful do not monitor, the masses. What we have a choice is the option of the one-way or the two-way glass. We have the option of the powerful being able to look up and not the reverse, or we have what he calls the transparent society option, where the powerful get to monitor us, monitor our associations, our phone calls, our movements, but we get to do the same to them. We get to take that same flashlight that technology provides and shine it back on the powerful, and that is what we should be legislating. It's what we should be lobbying for.
I love that idea. I actually have written a few columns for Scientific American about that. I call it grassroots spying. Yeah, I mean, obviously these powerful institutions are already spying on us, but some of these very cheap technologies allow us to look back on them, at them, and figure out what they're doing. I'm excited by the possibility of, let's say, human rights organizations also employing drones, and this has already happened with civilian surveillance satellites to a certain extent. But drones can also be used to gather evidence, for example, on atrocities committed by the U.S. or other nations, or let's say insurgencies against civilians, and bringing these to the attention of the public. Drones can be used to discover whether corporations are dumping toxic waste in the jungle. If I try to look at the bright side, I can see these surveillance technologies doing a lot of good, basically supercharging the media. And you've already seen examples of this with WikiLeaks. I mean, the internet provides some real opportunities for turning the tables on some very powerful spy agencies. So the more of that, the better, as far as I'm concerned.
Have you seen the news stories about various people around the country being arrested by police simply for using their cell phones to record encounters with police?
No, I haven't seen that. That's definitely a worrisome trend. That seems like something that could be legislated out of existence right there.
Well, the laws that the police cite are absurd in terms of the context in which the arrest was made. They're like laws basically against spying on people without their knowledge. But if you have a phone in your hand and you tell the police officer, I am recording, this encounter for my own safety and protection, he knows that he's being recorded. And this is something else that David Brin has weighed in on. He says, I'm no cop hater, but we have to be absolutely firm with the police. This behavior will not stand, and that they will be observed just like the rest of us, and that ultimately it's good as well as for ours.
Well, I remember the incident during Occupy Wall Street. I think it was in Oakland, where a cop just went down this row of protesters and sprayed pepper spray, I think it was, in their faces. And somebody took that video and then posted it online. And, if that hadn't been recorded, I think most people probably wouldn't have believed that it really happened. But here you had this recording of it that was undeniable, and that produced a tremendous surge of sympathy for the Occupy Wall Street movement. So that shows the power of these technologies. So I'm a little concerned about the kind of anarchic nature of some of this grassroots spying I was talking about. So I am a fan of WikiLeaks, but there's this other group, Anonymous, closely associated with WikiLeaks, that has engaged in some kind of, I guess I'd call it vigilante justice. The one case that I've written about involves a possible gang rape of a girl at a party in Ohio. This was last summer, and there were kids who were taking pictures of her with their cell phones and tweeting about her and mocking her. It was really awful, and it looked like these kids were going to get away with it. And then Anonymous got involved and started posting names of people who were at the party and names of their parents and basically demanding justice. And it, in one sense, you sort of felt that there was justice being served to a certain extent here. On the other hand, you're not sure if Anonymous really has the right data, and you don't know if some of these people's reputations are being destroyed when actually they were innocent. So, that's what you kind of get when you have this non-institutional surveillance taking place.
So, WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, it seems as though anybody who is going to attempt to basically use technology to shine the light of scrutiny and surveillance back at the powerful is going to be demonized, and possibly much worse will happen to them.
Yeah.
You say you are a fan of WikiLeaks.
I am.
So tell me about some of the conversations you engage in where people, they might not use the term, but they accuse Julian Assange of being a traitor and a saboteur to the United States.
Well, Julian Assange is a complicated figure. He's, I don't know. I've read a lot about him that makes him sound kind of like an asshole and somebody who is a little paranoid about how people are possibly revealing his own secrets, and maybe a little bit too much of a control freak of WikiLeaks. I mean, that's just, maybe that's totally unfair, but that's the sense that I get from some of the coverage that I've read about him. But, to me, those personality issues pale beside the enormous public good that has flowed from all these government secrets that have been revealed by WikiLeaks, and also corporate secrets and abuses of power by corporations and by governments. So I think WikiLeaks is sort of a great demonstration proof of the power of the internet for revealing data that helps us see what's really going on with some of these powerful institutions. I would like to see more movements, more WikiLeaks type groups emerge, inspired by WikiLeaks, but that maybe have not quite as many of these personality issues and organizational issues that WikiLeaks. And I'm pretty sure that is going to happen. But as I said, you might also get some of these kind of disturbing examples of vigilante justice on the internet as represented by some actions of Anonymous.
You say that Julian Assange is an interesting and sort of contradictory character. How about Anonymous, which is not even a person, but an organization, whose membership cannot be verified, and their any statement that is made on behalf of Anonymous is very difficult to authenticate.
Yeah, in the same sense, as with WikiLeaks, I'm hoping that they kind of mature and that there's less of this sort of anarchy for its own sake and more attention to really serious issues of justice and so forth, because God knows we really need that. And my bet is that you will see that kind of development and maturing, either of Anonymous or of other groups that emerge that have similar goals to Anonymous. At least that's what I hope.
I read a lot of discussion threads about the use of drones that I do not participate in just because I don't want to get sucked into an ugly debate. But something that I hear again, and I suppose I should say I read it again and again, is that somebody found some cautionary note about the use of drones and about the unprecedented privilege and power that the Obama administration claims to basically let the President of the United States to choose who will live and die without any sort of judicial process, and that can include American citizens. And whenever this objection or this caution is raised, the immediate response seems to be, well, no American citizens have been killed using drones on American soil, as if that were some sacrosanct line that will never be crossed, when my intuition is that it will be crossed pretty soon, and that nobody who doesn't already raise an eyebrow will raise an eyebrow then.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think you even have to present drones as a moral issue. To me, you could say you can talk about it in just very practical, strategic terms about, what is best for the long-term security of the United States. So obviously we have a huge advantage in drone technology right now. But you have more than 50 other countries around the world that are developing their own drones now because they see what drones can do for you. You can kill people anywhere practically without any risk to your own soldiers, right? I mean, what's not to like about that? But so you've got all these other programs that are, I'm sure, very rapidly going to catch up to the United States. You also have non-governmental groups. Hezbollah, other militant groups have acquired their own drones. Some are acquiring them from other countries, or they can even manufacture them themselves. You can get even individuals purchasing drones who can use them for attacks on whoever they like. So the latest trend in drones is drones that try to attack and destroy other drones, because the United States is actually really worried about drone attacks here on our own soil. So again, looking at it strictly in practical terms, you could say maybe there's a short-term military advantage, but long-term it's so stupid. It inflames opinion against the United States around the world. We look like bullies. We show the hypocrisy in our talk about justice and law and order and human rights by just being able to kill anybody that we like because of some kind of internal deliberation. And I've got to say, I voted for Obama, but I'm appalled at the way that he has used drones. I think it is it's stupid, and I think it is morally wrong. And I'm hoping that his administration, or perhaps the next one, changes its policy on drones.
Have you read about the actual process that takes place by which he chooses the targets?
Only the articles in the New York Times. I read the first series that talked about the kill list. And, what bothers me is that it seems as though, the defenders of the program sort of talk about how hard Obama thinks about these decisions before he decides to drop the hammer on some bad guy in Yemen or Pakistan or wherever. I mean, it's absurd. The whole point of having a system of regulations and laws is that you don't rely on any individual person's judgment. That's what we have courts for. It all seems just too ad hoc and whimsical for these very serious life and death decisions.
I certainly agree. Does it seem, not sure how to put it exactly, It seems to me as though throughout the second Bush presidency that conservatives of various stripes were very supportive of the Bush administration's constant strengthening of the position of the executive branch compared to the legislative branch, that the presidency gained more power, and they thought this was a great thing. And I was thinking the whole time, well, your man won't be in office forever. Not only are you granting George W. Bush more power to act independently of Congress, but you're giving that same power to whoever comes next. And it seems like the Obama administration, like in so many other ways, is very much a continuation of the Bush administration in this push to expand executive power and to assert that the Congress and the courts and the American people have no legitimate grounds to contest this expansion of power.
Yeah, it's very distressing. My hope is that that Americans will, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, will be concerned by this accumulation of power in the presidency. And, my biggest concern is especially power related to the military. And again, if you just talk strictly in practical terms, it's bankrupting us. I mean, we're spending about $1 trillion a year on the military now, and it's insane. We're spending as much as the rest of the world combined. And we're constantly innovating in weapons in a way, and this is true of drones, that inspires others to do the same. And so you get this perpetuation of militarization. You get new arms races springing up all the time, and it's just stupid. And I really hope, I actually liked, for all his flaws, I liked Ron Paul, because Ron Paul was, in some ways, a really pure anti-war candidate. He was a little bit too much of an isolationist for my taste, because he doesn't believe in the UN. But if you had a Ron Paul type candidate who thought that we needed really deep cuts in the U.S. military and to start withdrawing from our bases overseas and get rid of this idea that we have to be this global military force and the world's policemen and all that stupid stuff. And you combine that with a recognition that the United States or the United Nations can still really be an important force for promoting peace and negotiations around the world. And if you put that together with the recognition that scaling back our military is a way to solve a lot of our economic problems, which should appeal to conservatives, I think you've got the basis of a really broad peace movement there. It obviously didn't happen with Obama, but we'll see who comes up in the next presidential cycle.
You think perhaps Hillary Clinton will be more of a peacenik than Barack Obama?
Unfortunately, I don't think so, unless she goes through some kind of sea change. If you remember, during the election, she was more hawkish than Obama in the way that she talked about Iran and Iraq and Afghanistan and so forth. I think as a woman, unfortunately, she needs to be more hawkish than a male candidate. I'd love to see her prove me wrong, but that's my concern about her.
Well, I think that President Barack Obama has demonstrated more clearly and artfully than any previous president that there is no relation whatsoever between the candidate who is running for office and the person who takes that office and who uses the power of that office. Because Brand Obama in the election has no resemblance whatsoever to President Obama, particularly now in his second term.
You're obviously even more of a disappointed Obama supporter than I am.
I'm not, because I never supported him, and I'm not disappointed because I never had any high hopes for his candidacy. I just never imagined that he would provide this glaring a demonstration of the fact that what is said on the campaign trail means nothing.
Yeah, it's been pretty bad. On the other hand, I'm not I'm not that down on him. I'm still I like the fact that he pushed through the health care bill, even though it's very flawed. He has made some noises about the reform of the banking system, even though that has been pretty pathetically weak. It looks like we will be out of Afghanistan within, I don't know, a year, 18 months. I guess better late than never. God, I hate to hear myself say this because I feel like, I don't know, an abused spouse. But I'm still hopeful that he can turn things around, and maybe we'll have some surprises, some happy surprises for the anti-war left in the next few years.
Well, I hope that you're proven correct. I'm not investing any hope or expectation in that, though.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Well, John Horgan, thank you very much for participating on the C-ROM podcast. I hope to talk to you again soon.
All right. Thank you, KMO. Best of luck.
Bye-bye.